From polar areas to tropical, Asia is a land possessing a variety of rich natural wonders. Precipitous land and bountiful water, deep forests, and desolate deserts, ravishingly exquisite flora and fauna. Asia's natural splendors lead us into a magical and unique world. Located in northwestern Hunan province, approximately 1,000 kilometers to the west of Shanghai, is a mountainous region of gentle rolling hills. Dotting the base of these hills are several villages. On the other side of these gentle hills lies the natural wonder of Wulingyang, an extraordinary landscape of twisted rocks, peaks, and forests. Because the area used to be known as a place for picking peaches and plums, it was previously called Taoli Yuan, or source of peaches and plums. However, when it was discovered that a fantastical forest of unique peaks, utterly unimaginable from the outside world, existed deep within these mountains, the area came to be called Wulingyang, meaning a fantastical world in Mandarin Chinese. Within an area of approximately 270 square kilometers, there are more than 3,000 peaks, all over 200 meters tall. These uniquely shaped peaks were formed from sandstone with large amounts of fine quartz particles, the same material used to make glass, compressed within the sand. This forest of fantastical peaks was formed from the movement of the Earth's crust, which caused vertical cracking, followed by erosion from rain. It is thought that approximately 200 million years ago, this entire area was a shallow sea in which large amounts of sand accumulated. These sand deposits eventually formed a 500-meter thick sandstone stratum. Crustal movement later heaved everything up from the bottom of the ocean. The mild climate and plentiful rain then prompted the erosion of the raised sandstone mountains. Erosion has left many deep ruts and holes in this huge rock, which toppled down from the peaks above. These unique rock formations have formed various shapes, and many of the peaks have been given names. This rock, resembling a young girl with a flower basket scattering flowers, is called Fairy Offering Flowers. These three unique rocks are lined up like sisters. In late April, the snows begin to melt. Hamamelis japonica, or Japanese witch hazel, is the first plant to bloom. Katakuri, which is a kind of lily, also begins blossoming on the forest floor. The beech trees which cover the mountains of Shirakami are deciduous, broad-leaved trees, growing as tall as 30 meters. Beech trees, which have soft gray bark and grow straight up toward the sky, are found in cool and humid mountainous areas. Beech trees are able to survive the heavy snowfalls of Shirakami-sanchi because of their particularly flexible and strong trunks, which help them to endure both the weight of the heavy snows and the strong winds. Having wind-pollinated flowers at the beginning of spring, the beech trees of the forest all sprout leaves, then bloom at the same time. Preventing flowers on the same tree from pollinating each other, male and female flowers bloom at different intervals. The female flowers bloom first. In order to easily become pollinated, their flowers point upward. Blooming after the female flowers, the male flowers point downward to facilitate their pollen dissemination. As if reaching up toward the mountain peak, the beech trees of Shirakami-sanchi sprout leaves and flowers in the direction of the mountain tops. During the summer, the beech trees grow leaves, turning the whole forest green. In spite of the strong sunlight, the forest interior is cool and moist. This is because direct sunlight is blocked by the tree leaves. Japanese beech tree leaves are about 10 centimeters long. The trees grow branches on the upper part of their trunks, and these sprout several million leaves. Each leaf is shaped in an upward-facing U. Veins are clearly visible on the leaves. Their form is also significant for the beech trees of Shirakami-sanchi. Beech tree leaves collect rain without spilling a drop. The rainwater, collected by the leaves, then flows along the trunk down to the roots of the tree. The stems, which are meticulously entwined, both ensure that water is absorbed by the base roots, as well as prevent the soil from flowing out. Small beech trees grow around the roots of the trees. This tree is approximately 3 or 4 years old. These small trees can wait up to 20 years to receive direct sunlight by waiting for the surrounding trees to die or fall down. They are able to stop growing and wait for that period. The growth of these trees is slow, taking 100 years to grow a trunk that is 50 centimeters in circumference and reach 25 meters in height. Only when they have reached this mature size do they bloom flowers for the first time. The average life expectancy of a beech tree is approximately 300 years. When these trees die, their places are quickly taken over by the next generation. The continuity of the next generation of trees has ensured the survival of this forest. Water bubbles up in places all over the mountains, forming brooks and streams. One beech tree is said to preserve as much as 8 tons of water in the soil beneath it. For this reason, the beech forests are likened to natural reservoirs. The abundant water, which has been absorbed by the land, nurtures the animals living in the forests. The existence of more than 2,000 animals, including the Japanese macaque, have been confirmed in the Shirakami-sanchi area. This bird returning to its nest in the tree trunk is a black woodpecker. Approximately 45 centimeters in length, the black woodpecker is Japan's largest woodpecker. It makes its nests in Shirakami-sanchi's straight tree trunks. This bird is currently in danger of extinction, and only as few as 20 are left on the main Japanese island of Honshu, all living in the forests of Shirakami-sanchi. In mid-October, the season of changing leaves arrives in the Shirakami-sanchi forest. The color of the leaves changes from green to brilliant yellow. They remain yellow for only about 3 weeks. During this period, the forest begins preparing for the coming winter. Mushrooms increase, both in size and in number, and densely cover the trees. The beech trees, having been pollinated in early spring, bear numerous fruit. However, the trees cannot produce this much fruit every year, and oftentimes following a year which has produced an abundance of fruit, the trees don't bloom flowers. The nuts, which are rich in fat and protein, are an important food source for the animals to survive in the winter. Soon, the beech trees will lose all of their leaves to get ready for the winter. Shirakami-sanchi is the world's largest virgin beech forest. Inheriting these forests are new generations of trees that do their part to ensure the survival of this pristine and beautiful forest. Southeast Asia spreads out along both sides of the equator. High mountains that pierce the sky have made possible the evolution of rare plants, and its tropical jungles have preserved animals and plants from prehistoric times. Southeast Asia has preserved ecosystems that remain amazingly untouched. It is a unique place, protected by both the great waters of the sea and the monsoon rains. Malaysia is a hot and humid country lying on the equator, which occupies the southern part of the Malay Peninsula, as well as the northwestern part of Borneo Island. Borneo Island is the third largest island in the world. The city of Kota Kinabalu, located in the northern part of the island, is the jumping-off point for sightseeing tours. Stretching across the central part of the island is a chain of 2,000-meter-tall mountains, dominated by Mount Kinabalu. Mount Kinabalu, the highest mountain in Southeast Asia, boasts an altitude of 4,095 meters. The mountain stands alone like a solitary island in the middle of the vast ocean of the tropical rainforest. Kinabalu Park, 753 square meters in size, is an important and rich depository of endemic plants, which have been nurtured by the unique conditions of the mountain. Characterizing the mountain is its jagged ridge, which ranges some 3 kilometers in length. Long ago, the mountain's ridge used to be covered in glaciers. The ridge was carved out some 10,000 years ago, when the mountain was extensively eroded by the glaciers that covered it. The mountain's gray ridge is formed from granite. Granite is thought to be lighter than other rocks, and therefore the effects of gravity are not as strong. This results in a phenomenon whereby granite actually breaks through the layers of the earth, bursting up above the ground. Mount Kinabalu was not always as high a mountain as it is now. Approximately 1.5 million years ago, a huge amount of molten granite that formed within the Earth's crust hardened and rose up, resulting in the creation of a new ridge. This new, much taller mountain had a dramatic impact on the surrounding environment. From about midway up the mountain to its summit is extremely steep and consists of no trees. However, in spite of having an altitude greater than that of Mount Fuji, Mount Kinabalu has alpine plants growing up its slopes, which grow in crevices within the rocks. This plant, Heath rhododendron, is endemic to Mount Kinabalu. While rhododendron bushes on the side of the mountain can grow up to several meters in height, those on or near the summit can only grow as tall as 30 centimeters. The plants adapt themselves to their environment by changing shape in order to protect their seeds to ensure their survival. The tropical climate of high temperatures and high humidity guarantees a climate with year-round heavy rainfall. This climate, in turn, nurtures the thick forests which surround the base of the mountain. Because taller trees grow and actually pierce through the forest top, tropical rainforests are said to be forests on top of forests. This tree, belonging to the Dipterocarpaceae family, grows to be 70 meters in height. A typical tree of the tropical rainforests of Southeast Asia, it is widely used as a material for plywood. What supports the tree's great height are roots called buttress roots, which extend outward like wood planks. The world's largest plant blooms in Kinabalu Park. This is the Rafflesia, or corpse flower. The Rafflesia grows 1 meter in diameter and is a plant that is only a flower, having neither stems nor leaves. The ecology of the flower is still full of unknown mysteries. Rafflesia grows and exists parasitically on the root of a vine in the grape family. Several years after pollination, it sprouts a bud that swells before coming into bloom 9 months later. The flower blooms for only 1 short week. During the short time it is in bloom, the flower entices bugs with its unusual smell. It dies shortly after being pollinated. This flower, which blooms and then dies in the tropical rainforest surrounding Mount Kinabalu, is truly an unusual specimen of the plant world. Mount Kinabalu is covered in clouds and therefore not visible on most days. Because of these conditions, the mountain has been an object of worship from ancient times. The summit is especially revered as a place in which spirits of the dead dwell. Mount Kinabalu has a cloud forest on its hillside that is completely covered in clouds at all times. Moss and lichen directly absorb moisture in the air. The soil in this area has almost no exposure to direct sunlight, making it soggy and infertile. Plants gain the nutrients they need to survive in unique ways here. One example of this is the carnivorous pitcher plants. Pitcher plants have leaves which have evolved to taper down into shapes, resembling pitchers of about 20 centimeters in length. These pitchers entice and trap insects with their honey smell, then dissolve and digest the trapped insects with special enzymes. Pitcher plants can trap either crawling or flying insects. The shape of its pitcher, as well as its breeding location, depends on the type of insect it traps. The soil here is not only infertile, but also has high concentrations of highly toxic metals, which were dredged up to the surface, along with the granite that formed the mountain. Able to grow and propagate in this soil is a species of tree endemic to the area, Dacrydium gipsea. In addition, more than 1,000 types of orchids have been confirmed in Kinabalu Park. Of those, 1% is endemic to the area. In Mount Kinabalu, unknown types of new orchids are being found, one after another. Kinabalu Park embraces the area around Southeast Asia's largest mountain. The mountain's unique environmental conditions have in turn nurtured the evolution of many of the planet's most unique and rare plants, in what is being lauded as being one of the world's greatest repositories of plants. The symbol of the country of Vietnam is the lotus flower. A long, thin country, Vietnam occupies the eastern portion of the Indochina Peninsula. The region is characterized by a tropical monsoon climate, which has both a rainy season and a dry season. Year-round temperatures in Vietnam are above 18 degrees Celsius, and monsoons blowing in from the Indian Ocean bring large amounts of rainfall to the country. In central Vietnam, verdant and water-drenched rice fields are packed in long and narrow flatlands that are sandwiched in between 1,500-meter-tall mountains and the sea. Rice cultivation is carried out in these paddies year-round, thanks to abundant water flow from the mountains. Unusually shaped mountains appear just on the other side of this river, which provides plentiful water for the rice paddies of the area. The white rock seen embedded with other rocks in the mountains is limestone. Because limestone is so highly erosive, the abundant rain of the region has over time drastically changed the shapes of the mountains. This type of landscape is called a limestone karst terrain and is rich in caves and grottos. The limestone mountains are covered in virgin forest. Underneath these mountains are countless stalactite caves. Phong Nha Bang National Park is 2,000 square kilometers in size. The Phong Nha Cave is the most famous cave in the park's cave system. A river flows out the mouth of the cave. Once inside the cave, we come immediately to a dead end. Deep inside the chamber, only 50 centimeters above the waterline, we see a corridor leading to the stalactite cave. However, because of the high water levels, the entrance is filled up with water. Water levels in the cave change minute to minute, something that is characteristic of limestone landscapes. Steep mountains straddle the border between Vietnam and Laos. There is a unique monkey that dwells in these forest-covered mountains. Francois leaf monkeys, which are approximately 1 meter in height and weigh 10 kilograms, are leaf-eating monkeys living in the karst mountains and caves of Asia. These virgin forests nurture a wide variety of vegetation, ranging from very primitive to tropical plants. Fern, a primitive form of vegetation, has remained unchanged for some 300 million years. Rather than a bush, this tree fern has a thick trunk. The dense jungle is daunting for most humans, as is the tropical climate, which quickly turns fallen leaves into rich fertilizer for the soil. This is what has maintained these virgin forests over such a long stretch of time. Abundant rainfall is absorbed into the rich soil of the forest. Having been quickly absorbed into the soil, rainwater bubbles up at the base of the mountain. Intricate underground channels have been formed in the karst terrain. This intricate underground network causes spring water to bubble up in unexpected places. Water flows down from the mountains in Laos, creating the full rivers of the area. Beneath the virgin forests, there is an intricate network of subterranean rivers. Part of this underground network is the river which flows through the Phong Na cave. Over the past several days, the water level has greatly decreased. The inner chamber is now accessible. A new world is suddenly opened up to us as we enter a huge chamber. The only sound in the cave is that of the flowing of water. More than 20 caves are linked together by an underground river system, which extends 40 kilometers in length. Water, absorbed by the limestone, trickles out the entire cave interior. Water trickles along the cave walls as if crawling. Over time, the coats of mineral-laden trickling water build up and form into curtain-like stalactites. Stalactites hang down from the chamber ceiling. The icicle formations continue extending lower and lower until they eventually reach the ground, turning into stalactite pillars. The stalactites inside this cave are for the most part brownish in color, compared to the more common creamy white and smooth textured ones. These formations are also unusual in that their surface is rough, like coral. Stalactite has innumerable holes in their top layer which are too small to see, and water trickles constantly through these holes out of the stone. Large quantities of water, seeping down from the soil of the virgin forest above the cave, are quickly absorbed into the limestone. When this happens, impurities such as clay and iron are mixed in with the limestone-laden water. These conditions are what produce the rough, highly porous and brownish stalactites. In addition, depending on the amount of impurities mixed in with the limestone-laden water, the shade of brown varies from stalactite to stalactite. When the cave was first discovered, something else just as remarkable as the cave was also found. That was the striped patterns of the rocky wall. Embedded with the other layers of rock is a stratum that dates back to the Paleozoic era, some 400 million years ago. Presently, the cave is confirmed to extend back more than 80 kilometers, but this is only part of its actual length. Virgin forests, nurtured by the tropical climate, along with an abundance of water, cover the Great Karst Plateau that spreads from Vietnam all the way into China. Located on this plateau, and created by the endless circulation of water, are the caves of Phong Nha Bang National Park. The Republic of the Philippines is made up of more than 7,000 large and small islands in tropical waters slightly north of the equator. The Sulu Sea, located southwest of the islands, is stormy throughout most of the year. Seas are calm here only 3 months out of the year at the beginning of spring. "200 kilometers offshore, an overnight boat trip away, a huge expanse of shallow waters suddenly appears in the middle of the sea. This is the Tubataha Reef, the largest coral reef system in Southeast Asia. This small sandy island is a benchmark for seabirds that use it as a breeding ground in the Sulu Sea. The word Tubataha means long coral reef in the language of the Bajau people who dwell in the Sulu Sea. The reef, however, is actually a ring-shaped atoll reef. A ship traveling along its outer edge will travel some 40 kilometers around it. Atolls, which form in deep waters, usually have perpendicular walls, like cliffs. Tubataha Reef is famous for the many different types of beautifully colored corals that can be found there. Corals grow in warm waters of 18 to 30 degrees Celsius. The world's greatest variety of corals can be seen in the tropical seas between the Philippines and Indonesia. Located in the middle of the Sulu Sea, it is said that all the major types of coral are represented in Tubataha Reef. A bluefin trevally is cutting through a school of tiny fish, looking for food. Corals are the perfect hiding place for small fish, such as damselfish. The colors and patterns of the fish blend in with the coral. Butterfly fish eat algae on rocky stretches of the coral reef. Titan triggerfish find food hiding within the crevices of the coral reef. There are some fish that also eat the reef itself. Coral reefs are referred to as the tropical rainforests of the sea. Corals are plankton-eating marine cnidarians, in the same phylum as sea anemones. Most have hard external skeletons. A coral reef is formed out of several thousand to several million individual pieces of living coral that together form one organism. The corals eat plankton at night and in the daytime obtain energy from algae, which they live symbiotically with and that perform photosynthesis for them. Most types of coral grow in colonies in shallow waters that have sufficient sunlight for photosynthesis, and their shape varies depending on species and location. Acropora corals resemble tree branches. The largest genus of coral, there are some 150 types of Acropora. Acropora coral, which grows flat on top, is more commonly known as table coral. This coral is shaped like a cactus. A cluster of this larger knob coral resembles a human brain. The hard skeleton bodies of these coral animals become a base for other coral to grow on after the animals die. As they pile up one upon another, they form an organism known as a coral reef. There are many types of coral, however, which do not have a hard skeleton. These corals are called soft coral. This coral resembles a tree when its tentacles are extended to catch plankton being swept by the tide. Soft corals, which do not exist symbiotically with algae, can even live in areas without any light. A stingray lies in wait in the shade of a rock. It has a poisonous stinger on its tail. Countless crevices in the reef are perfect habitats for various kinds of creatures. A painted spiny lobster sticks only its antenna out from its hiding place. A blue-spotted grouper hides in the shadow of a rock. The Tubataha Reef rises up in the middle of the deep ocean. The reef's spectacular perpendicular wall was formed from corals that have attached themselves, one on top of the other, for several million years. There is an oceanic volcano located under the reef, with a depth that could reach up to 100 meters. Movements in the Earth's crust caused the volcano to sink, becoming submerged at the bottom of the sea. This led to the formation of the atoll reef, as corals collected, one layer on top of the next, around the rim of the volcano. Being tossed about by angry waves in the Sulu Sea, Tubataha's coral reefs continue to grow and grow. Fish migrate from all over the Sulu Sea to the nutrient-rich waters around the reef. Tubataha's coral reefs were created in the middle of this deep sea by a variety of chance factors. This is truly an oasis of an endless variety of fish. The Republic of Indonesia has the largest number of islands of any nation on Earth. The landscape here has borne the brunt of frequent, often violent volcanic activity. The Ujung Kulon National Park region, however, is a place where one can see land that was once devastated by volcanic activity being reborn by the tremendous regenerating powers of the Earth. The park has two distinct areas contained within it. The first is Krakatau Island, which is the location of a famous volcano that erupted approximately 120 years ago. The island is located in the Sunda Strait, between the western coast of Java and the island of Sumatra. The other part of the park is just south of Krakatau Island, on the Ujung Kulon Peninsula, which is located on the westernmost edge of Java Island. In the park, which is 1,230 square kilometers in size, people can see the process by which the Earth recovers after a volcanic eruption with their own eyes. The land tells the story of geological destruction and revival that has been repeated over and over since ancient times. The Ujung Kulon Peninsula has a tropical climate with an average temperature of more than 25 degrees Celsius. Tropical rainforest covers the entire peninsula. The roots of trees have developed into various forms in order to support their great size and to efficiently absorb nutrients from the soil's top layers, where organic decomposition takes place. Adapting to conditions of limited nutrients, vines attach themselves to trees in order to reach as high as possible above the canopy. Among the various trees in the green universe of the tropical rainforest, one huge tree stands out from the rest. These two trees resemble scaffolding going up a building. The outer tree, which is twisted around the other tree, is a Ficus annulata, belonging to the fig family. Seeds deposited high in the canopy by monkeys and birds put out buds that send root tendrils down towards the ground, where they eventually cover or strangle the tree itself. An aerial plant, the tree is also known as a strangler fig for the way it twists itself around other trees. Tropical forest fig trees produce enormous amounts of fruit when they flower. They produce an abundance of fruit so that as many animals as possible will gather the fruit and bring it up to the treetops to eat. This ensures that the seeds are scattered far and wide. One of the animals taking on this task is the rhinoceros hornbill. This large bird, which is over a meter in length, was given its name by the fact that it has a large, horn-shaped bony structure on top of its bill that resembles a rhinoceros's horn. Fig trees, which bear fruit several times a year, don't all grow fruit at the same time. This ensures that there is always a fig tree in its floral stage, somewhere in the forest. The tropical rainforest is an inexhaustible storehouse of food. Ordinarily in a tropical rainforest, the sky can hardly be seen due to the great tangle of overgrown trees. However, in Ujung Kulon National Park, there is much new growth, and the sky can therefore be seen throughout the forest. The reason why we still find so much new growth can be explained by the landscape of the Ujung Kulon Peninsula. The coast is littered with countless black rocks. In 1883, one of the largest volcanic eruptions in history occurred on the island of Krakatau. Even more devastating than the explosion was the series of tremendous tsunamis that were generated. One wave reached 40 meters in height crashing down on the surrounding coasts, destroying forests and hills. Even today, the volcano of Krakatau continues emitting gas and smoke. At first glance, the island, which is rocky and full of lava fields, could be taken to be completely barren. Here, however, we see plants taking root in the ash-colored earth. This species of melastoma is able to grow in the sandy soils created from weathered lava rocks. Volcanic explosions bring forth combinations of minerals with almost the same composition as chemical fertilizers. Volcanic explosions heave two types of substances up to the Earth's surface, those that are harmful and those that promote new life. During the volcanic eruption 120 years ago, the coastal forests of the Ujung Kulon Peninsula suffered tremendous damage. The tropical rainforest was almost completely destroyed. Out of this destruction, all kinds of new plant growth have taken place within this soil, now thick with volcanic ash. The jungle is accessible only by boat. A jungle is defined as tropical rainforests which have been destroyed or cleared, thereby allowing significant amounts of light to penetrate the area, promoting the thick growth of vines and trees and other plants which are so characteristic of jungles. This forest turned into jungle particularly fast due to the tremendous amounts of volcanic ash which worked to enrich the soil. The dense jungle is the perfect place for animals to hide in. This snake, coiled on a branch, is a python. This snake, a slightly poisonous oriental whip snake, lays hidden in the grass. It is believed that this jungle, in which plants compete with each other for a better place in the sunshine, will return once again someday to its original state. Footprints 40 centimeters long were found along the water. The three-toed footprints are those of a Javan rhinoceros. It is very rare to catch a glimpse of a Javan rhinoceros. Their footprints, however, can be found near the water or within the forest. The one-horned Javan rhinoceros is the most primitive rhinoceros among the 5 existing species, and has remained virtually unchanged for 10 million years. It is also one of the most endangered animals on Earth. Their numbers were at one time reduced to only 24. Presently, about 60 rhinoceros are said to inhabit the Ujung Kulon Peninsula. With thick skin-like armor, a Javan rhinoceros advances forward, pushing down trees. This jungle, which is so thick with trees and plants that there is hardly room to move, is truly their last place of refuge. There are other rare animals living in Ujung Kulon National Park. One of these rare creatures is the beautiful wild ox, the banteng. Banteng are also animals that have remained unchanged from ancient times. 400 of them live within the park. The jungles here continue to nurture and preserve many unique flora and fauna. Created from continuous cycles of destruction and regeneration, Ujung Kulon National Park protects within it various flora and fauna that have existed since prehistoric times. Numerous large and small islands dot the waters between the Pacific Ocean and the Indian Ocean in the Republic of Indonesia. Located approximately 1,500 kilometers east of the nation's capital of Jakarta, in the Lesser Sunda Islands, is the small 460-kilometer island of Komodo. Komodo National Park was designated as a World Heritage Site in 1991. This rock is named Old Man Gathering Herbs because it is thought to resemble an old man with a basket on his back, collecting herbs deep within the mountains. There is one peak which is practical to nearby inhabitants. This naturally formed bridge is known as Tiang Kishen Kong, or the bridge across the sky. 350 meters above the ground, it measures 40 meters long, 10 meters wide, and 15 meters thick. Even today, people still use this bridge to cross from one peak to the other. In the northern region, uniquely shaped peaks and rocks are densely packed together. This area boasts the most stunning scenery in Wulingyuan. Legend has it that 700 years ago, a chief of the ethnic minority, the Tuja people, launched an uprising against the Ming rulers. The mission failed, after which he committed suicide by flinging himself off this mountaintop. Many Tuja still live in this part of Wulingyuan today. This complex landscape is a perfect hideout spot. Between the rocks, narrow and steep steps have been carved. With a width of less than 40 centimeters, these steps are said to have been made by bandits who used this place as their base in the 1940s. With its countless rocks and peaks, Wulingyuan also nurtures an abundance of vegetation due to large differences in its elevation. 99% of the non-rocky area is completely covered in greenery throughout the year. It is thought that there are some 3,000 species of plants in Wulingyuan. Among them, there are plants which are called living fossils. During the Mesozoic era, dawn redwood trees existed throughout the northern hemisphere. Today, however, this ancient tree is a rare plant, found only in this area of China. Because the fossil was discovered before the actual tree, it is called a living fossil. The dove tree is a tall deciduous tree that is native to China. It was given its name because its large white flower petals fluttering in the breeze are thought to resemble white doves. The park centers around Komodo Island, as well as its two neighboring islands. These islands are home to prehistoric animals that have transcended the stretch of time. Komodo dragons are said to be survivors from the days of the dinosaurs. The Komodo dragon is a huge reptile that has uniquely evolved in an environment that had remained completely isolated by the surrounding sea. Komodo is a hot, barren island dominated by a 5,600-meter tall mountain in the center. The majority of the island is made up of grassland, called savanna, which is characterized by grasses and tall trees that dot the dry landscape. The climate of the island is a tropical monsoon climate, consisting of a rainy season and a dry season. Because of seasonal dry winds blowing up from Australia which affect the climate, Komodo Island is the driest region in Indonesia. Because of its dry climate, various birds and other animals live in the wooded areas around the mountains of the island. The dusky scrubfowl is searching for food under fallen leaves. This scrubfowl is a flightless bird which deposits its eggs into nests it builds out of fallen leaves. This beautiful oriole inhabits a wide area, ranging from East Asia to South Asia. This bird is in the drongo family, and the shape of its tail feathers is quite unique. Lesser sulfur-crested cockatoos are a species of parrot. This bird, here seen drinking nectar from a flower, is a large-sized species belonging to the honeyeaters family. As many as 72 different species of birds can be observed on Komodo Island. The ancestors of most of these birds are thought to have migrated here from Australia. Several larger mammals also live in the wooded areas of the island. Water buffalo and horses, thought to have been released in the wild by humans, inhabit the park. Sambar deer breed in a wide area of the deciduous forests in Indonesia. Wild boars on the island are omnivorous, eating even insects and snakes. The animals are quite thin on Komodo, indicative of how harsh the environment is here. Crab-eating macaques are active over a large area and are continually on the move for food. They can be seen all over the island. When temperatures rise in the early morning, Komodo dragons make their appearance. Komodo dragons are the largest lizards in the world, reaching approximately 3 meters from head to tail, and reaching weights of up to 150 kilograms. A Komodo dragon's growl shakes the ground. Komodo dragons are cold-blooded reptiles, controlling their body temperature by exposing their bodies to sunlight. Therefore, the first thing they do in the morning is soak up the sunlight. Komodo dragons are creatures that are well adapted to the severe environment of this island. Scales cover the entire body of the Komodo dragon, effectively protecting it from natural predators. Also, its thick, black epidermis is able to effectively absorb solar heat, keeping moisture in the body from evaporating. Their forked tongues, like a snake's, can detect even the faintest smells and changes in temperature. It is said that the Komodo dragon can sniff out prey from 10 kilometers away. Near the entrance to the wooded area, a Komodo dragon lies quietly in wait, flat on the ground. It preys on animals like deer and wild boar. A Komodo dragon shows surprising agility when catching prey. It can achieve speeds of up to 20 kilometers an hour. The animal swallows its food without chewing. Its tank-like stomach can digest just about anything. A swing of its powerful tail can knock out its prey. It is also an excellent swimmer, using its tail to help it swim. It also has extremely strong hook-shaped nails. It can climb a tree supporting its substantial body with these nails. Looking at this creature, one senses something of what prehistoric sea and land-dwelling creatures must have been like. During the late Cretaceous period, many species on Earth went extinct. It is said that a small percentage of reptile species, however, managed to survive. The descendants of one of these surviving prehistoric reptile species then crossed the sea, landing on Komodo Island. On Komodo Island, Komodo dragons adapted to the harsh environment by evolving into larger forms, turning into the gigantic lizards which are endemic to the islands today. It is believed that Komodo dragons can survive without food for several months after a big meal. Because a delicate balance has been struck between the environment on the island and the animal's ecology, the Komodo dragon has survived to this day. On these isolated islands, the mysterious workings of evolution, which so long ago created animals the size of dinosaurs, can be seen at work today. Most of the trees growing along the sheer rocky stretches are pines. Pines are extremely hardy and can grow in such rocky places by extending their roots between the slightest gaps in the rocks. These pines are called Wuling pines. The forests of Wuling have been nurtured by an abundance of water. Animals and plants coexist in various habitats within the forest. The rhesus monkey is one of the famous mammals living in Wuling. The number of vertebrate animal species living in Wuling presently numbers 116. Many rare fish and birds that are threatened with extinction have been confirmed as living in this area. The rain that falls over the peaks and rocks is said to be slowly absorbed into and retained within the sandstone layer of these rocks. There are numerous places in the rocks where water bubbles out of. Using the water trapped in the rocks, an artificial lake on Baofeng Mountain was made 30 years ago. The lake took 5 years to complete. Baofeng Lake, which was completed in 1979, is 72 meters deep and covers 2.5 square kilometers. Rainwater, which carved these rocky peaks by eroding away the sandstone, was then absorbed into the ground. There it carved out limestone caves by slowly eroding away the stratum. Today, there are 40 such limestone caves of varying sizes in Wuling. This forest of stunning peaks created by nature took a long stretch of time to complete. A spectacular brocade woven from water and rocks, this fantastical world has remained unchanged from prehistoric times, retaining its mesmerizing beauty to this day. Yunnan Province, China. Sharing borders with Myanmar, Laos, and Vietnam to the south, and facing the Great Himalaya mountain range to the west, 90% of Yunnan Province is a high-altitude plateau covered in mountains. The northwestern part of the province in particular is dominated by a chain of steep 5,000-meter peaks and deep valleys. Within this mountainous region, 3 great rivers, all originating high on the Tibetan Plateau, flow parallel to each other for 300 kilometers. Flowing on the east side is the Jinshajiang, or the River of Golden Sand. The Jinshajiang is the headwater of the Yangtze River, the largest river in China. The river flowing in the center is the Langkangjiang. This river is the headwater of the mighty Mekong River, which flows down the length of the Indochina Peninsula. The Nujiang River, flowing on the east side, is the headwater of Myanmar's Great Salween River. The three rivers, which are never simultaneously visible because they are surrounded by steep mountains, curve towards and away from each other, never flowing together. Separated by mountains, each has fostered its own unique natural and cultural environment. The basins of the parallel rivers were registered as World Heritage Sites in 2003 under the name the Three Parallel Rivers of Yunnan Protected Areas. One of the headwaters of the world's third longest river, the Yangtze, is the Jinshajiang. The section along the Yangtze making up the Jinshajiang headwaters is said to have the most complicated terrain of the entire river. After flowing down the heights of the Tibetan Plateau, the Jinshajiang makes an abrupt change in direction in what is called the First Great Bend in the Yangtze. Some 1,500 kilometers from its source, the river, which had been flowing steadily south, makes a turn to the east, flowing inland. The area around the Great Bend is characterized by its many fantastically shaped rocks. The red rocks here were formed from sandstone that was heaved up from the bottom of the sea about 200 million years ago, and eroded slowly over time. The altitude of the river here is 3,800 meters. This sandstone monolith, now sitting on the top of the mountain, was heaved up around 4,000 meters from the bottom of the sea long ago. This rock formation was created by something known as tortoise-shell weathering, which is thought to have been formed by water seeping into the cracks of the sandstone, being repeatedly frozen and thawed. Proceeding further downriver, we come upon the most precipitous gorge along the Yangtze. Tiger Leaping Gorge got its name because the high waves along the river here are thought to resemble running tigers. Downstream of this spot, the waters, which sprang from the mountains, create a completely different landscape. These white limestone terraces, which were once at the bottom of the sea, were carved out from a limestone stratum that was eroded away by carbon dioxide-laden water. This area is one of the cradles of the Dongpa culture, the culture of the ethnic minority known as the Naxi. The Naxi believe this land to be the field of God, and they carry out a magnificent Dongpa festival to pray to the god of nature every Chinese New Year. Shudu Lake is a lake located deep within the mountains. Virgin forests surround a 1 square kilometer area around the lake. Since grass grows in this area, this is said to be a perfect place to graze animals. Traveling some 1,000 kilometers downstream, the Jinshajiang finally merges with other tributaries, and from this point on, it is known as the Yangtze. The Langkangjiang, which forms the headwaters of the Mekong River, is the central river of the three parallel rivers. Visible from the Langkangjiang Basin is the highest mountain of Yunnan province, the Meili Snow Mountain. Kawagebo, the highest peak of the mountain, has an altitude of 6,740 meters. The peak, whose name means God of Snow Mountain in the Tibetan language, is a well-known sacred place of Tibetan Buddhism. The sacred Meili Snow Mountain can be seen on the far bank of the Langkangjiang. Believing the area to be sacred ground, many people come to pray here, flinging themselves down on the ground in prostration. Snow falling on the Meili Snow Mountain turned into a glacier. The glacier, known as the Mingyong Glacier, continues down to an altitude of 2,650 meters, making it perhaps the southernmost glacier in the northern hemisphere. Vegetation in the area around the glacier along the Langkangjiang is very unique. Both subtropical forests, usually seen at latitudes of about 30 degrees north, and boreal conifer forests, which are typically seen in latitudes of over 60 degrees north, are seen together in this area. A wide variety of plants, ranging from cacti ordinarily seen in dry areas to vibrantly colored broadleaf trees and conifers, can be seen growing together here. For this reason, it is said that, except for the desert and the bottom of the ocean, all nature of the world is gathered in this one location. As it passes out of Yunnan province, the river changes its name to the Mekong River. From here it flows down through Laos, Thailand and Cambodia, continuing south through the Indochina Peninsula. The Nujiang, the river flowing on the west along the border with Myanmar, has the most precipitous geography in Yunnan province. The Nujiang River Gorge, some 2 kilometers deep and extending from north to south for 300 kilometers, is known as the Grand Canyon of the East. Since it is very difficult to build a bridge over the gorge, people cross the river by a traditional method using a rope and pulley. This technique for crossing the river, called liu suo, is still being passed down from generation to generation. Due to a chain of steep and jagged areas standing so closely together that they seem to be overlapping, the Nujiang River Basin has remained a very isolated place. Deep within these mountains live as many as 12 ethnic minorities, all of which have managed to maintain their unique cultures. Over several hundred million years, repeated crustal movement and orogenic activity have created a great range of mountains that cuts across the region. The three rivers flowing between these steep and beautiful mountains flow toward and then away from each other, parallel for roughly 300 kilometers. Boasting highly diverse natural environments with stunning and unique scenery, the three rivers of Yunnan province continue to nurture China and the countries of Southeast Asia. Bangladesh has the world's largest quantity of rainfall. Facing the Bay of Bengal to the south, which is sandwiched between India to the east and Myanmar to the west, Bangladesh is dominated by a vast delta. The delta is formed from huge deposits of sand, which are carried downstream by the two great rivers of the region, the Ganges River and the Brahmaputra River. The two great rivers, both of which originate in the heights of the Himalaya mountains, continue to deposit sand in the ever-growing delta. Located approximately 300 kilometers downstream along the river from the capital of Dhaka and extending all the way down to the Bay of Bengal is a vast 5,900 square kilometer forest called the Sundarbans. The trees growing densely in the deep forests here are mangroves. Mangrove is the generic term for all saltwater-tolerant evergreen trees that grow along coasts or along river mouths in tropical or subtropical areas. More than 300 species of plants have been confirmed in these forests. Among these, the tall-growing mangrove trees are the species that has come to characterize the Sundarbans. A complex network of narrow waterways crisscrosses all over the fertile delta, flooding the area with water. The river mouths, into which seawater flows, have different levels of salinity depending on the place. According to these saline levels, a wide variety of different mangrove species fill in the various ecological niches. These roots protruding out of the ground, called breathing roots, are unique to mangrove trees. In soil where fresh water is inundated with seawater, organic decomposition is not possible, and the soil becomes muddy, lacking in oxygen. The trees are unable to adequately absorb oxygen in this soil and adapt with roots that protrude from the ground. Species of the Heritaria itoralis family account for some 60% of the mangrove trees in the Sundarbans. This tree had developed its board-shaped buttress roots to help keep it standing upright in the soft mud. Rhizophora mucronata grow right up at the water's edge. These trees develop intricate root systems called prop roots. These roots, which are planted into the mud, both stabilize the tree in the soft soil and allow aerial breathing as well. This is Avicennia officinalis, which grows a dense network of roots in all directions. Avicennia officinalis roots are soft, therefore this species has adapted to the unstable soil by intertwining its roots with the roots of the other trees. The dense roots also serve as a buffer, preventing the fertile mud around them from floating out. The salinity of seawater is harmful for mangroves as well as for any other tree. This discoloring is due to saline buildup. This tree takes care of the problem by storing the saline solution within their leaves, and after a certain amount has built up, the leaves are shed, getting rid of the buildup of salt. On the other hand, there are other species that secrete the salt directly out of the surface or back of their leaves. Mangrove trees have varying ways of limiting their salt intake. They reproduce in various ways as well. There are some 2,300 seeds in the Soneratia cassiolaris fruit. When these seed-rich fruits fall into the water, they scatter over a wide area, thereby increasing their reproductivity. On the other hand, there are mangroves that ensure reproduction by germinating their fruit until they grow to a large size while still attached to the tree. This Bruguiera gymnorrhiza species germinates one thin fruit, approximately 20 centimeters in length, every year. When these fruits finally fall, they fall straight down into the mud where they root. The Candelia candle has even longer fruit than that of the Bruguiera gymnorrhiza. Candelia candle grow in places with deeper water than Bruguiera gymnorrhiza. Attaining lengths of 50 centimeters, the fruit begins to germinate even before it falls from the trees into the muddy water. It then takes root and begins to sprout immediately after falling into the mud. Adapting to this harsh environment, various types of mangrove trees have flourished here, making the Sundarbans one of the largest mangrove forests in the world. The Sundarbans are teeming with life at low tide. These crabs are a type of fiddler crab. In Japanese, the name of these crabs, which can be translated as tide inviting, is a reference to the way the tide comes after they have raised their claws up, as part of their courtship habits. The common redshank looks for crabs as it easily navigates around the mud. Deeper within the forest, we find axis deer. These raised deer graze on the fruit and leaves of the mangrove trees that have fallen in the mud. These rhesus monkeys are foraging for fruit, using the mangrove tree roots to hold on as they walk in the very slippery mud. They adroitly rinse off the mud and peel the fruit before eating it. A huge footprint over 15 centimeters wide is found in the forest. This is the footprint of the Bengal tiger, which is at the very top of the food chain here. It is said that about 500 tigers inhabit the deep forests, which are inaccessible to humans. The mangrove forest is a paradise for wild animals. The seawater is gradually rising. Animals are moving back into the deep forests. High and low tides are repeated twice a day. The animals of the mangrove forest live in line with the rhythm of the ocean. Seawater has fully covered the area. The river water flowing from upstream and the seawater flow into each other, and for a brief period, the surface of the water becomes as still as a mirror. The Sundarbans are vast mangrove forests that spread out in the delta. These great forests, which nurture a rich diversity of life, are continuing to expand even today. The Sultanate of Oman is located on the Arabian Sea in the Middle East. Except for mountainous areas in the north and south, the country is mostly made up of dry plains. With a subtropical desert climate, the region receives less than 100 millimeters of rain annually. It is an endless and desolate desert. Daytime temperatures in the summer reach over 50 degrees Celsius and plummet to below 30 degrees at night. With this day-night temperature variation of some 20 degrees Celsius, it is said that every day in Oman has two different seasons. However, along with this day-night difference in temperature, winds blowing in from the ocean bring morning dew and fog, creating a desert ecosystem that is unique from other deserts in the world. Oases are rare in the deserts of Oman. Instead, plants can be seen growing here and there. The most common tree in the deserts of Oman is the acacia. A tall evergreen tree, acacia has branches with multiple thorns. During the day, the tree's leaves droop as if withered. However, they are still very much alive. As soon as the sun goes down, the temperatures drop. In the early morning, the acacia tree leaves, having received much moisture from mist and dew, open up freshly, in a way unimaginable during the blistering hot day. Not only the acacia, but all the plants of the desert replenish the water which they lost during the day by soaking up the morning mist and fog. Al-Taib prevents water loss by folding in its leaves during the day. Slyket retains water by thickening its leaves. Gaf trees attain heights of 5 meters, making this the tallest tree in the deserts of Oman. The tree has multiple leaves on the upper parts of its branches. It is said that the trees live to be more than 200 years old. Here is a bird that makes its nest every year in this big tree. As its name implies, the little owl is a small-sized species of owl, measuring only 20 centimeters in length. In the desert, it eats insects, among other things, and lives in the Gaf tree. In addition to the various species of birds, many other creatures can be seen in the deserts of Oman. Hooded malpalons live in this rocky area. This snake actively searches for food during the daytime. Spiny-tailed lizards dig holes in the ground to live in. These lizards use their thorny tails, which are thought to be places where they store fat, to threaten their enemies. Arabian gazelles live throughout the Arabian Peninsula. They love snacking on the soft buds of the acacia tree. The deserts of Oman are surprisingly full of plant and animal life. There is one animal in the desert that doesn't exist anywhere else on Earth. That animal is the Arabian oryx. The Arabian oryx, which is an ungulate, used to be widely distributed throughout the Arabian Peninsula. Hunted to the point of near extinction, they are now actively being conserved. The animal is characterized by its white sun-reflecting coat and its two straight horns. During the mating season, from September to December, the animals can be seen locking horns in powerful displays of intimacy. Both males and females have horns reaching lengths of 70 centimeters. It was for these beautiful horns that they were hunted to levels of near extinction. From a long time ago, the Bedouin, the nomads of the desert, have used the Arabian oryx horns as a symbol of bravery. From the 1940s, hunting oryxes became a popular sport, and Arabian oryxes were killed one after the other. In 1972, the last oryx was shot in the wild in Oman, wiping out their existence within the entire Arabian Peninsula. In 1979, the Arabian Oryx project was started in the Sultanate of Oman. The animal's numbers have slowly been increasing, and there are currently as many as 250 Arabian oryxes protected in this desert. The animals weigh approximately 70 kilograms, about the same as a cow's calf. Arabian oryx only need 60 millimeters of water a day, which is equivalent to one small cup of water. They gain most of their water needs from moisture derived from plants. They move dozens of kilometers a day in search of these plants. As long as they have plants to eat, the Arabian oryx is said to be able to survive without even a drop of water during its entire lifetime. Arabian oryx have extremely efficient kidneys, urinating several times a day with almost no water content in their feces. They are perfectly adapted to the environment of the desert. Arabian oryx are said to be able to raise their body temperature during the daytime, when outside temperatures get too high. With the increased body temperature, the animals do not sweat, as the difference between the outside temperature and their body temperature has been sufficiently lowered. Thanks to efforts being made toward the conservation of this magnificent creature, the Arabian oryx is gradually returning in numbers in the wild. In addition to the animals themselves, conservation efforts are realizing a recovery of the animal's original ecosystem as well. The Arabian oryx is sometimes called a specialist of the desert. The Arabian Oryx Sanctuary in the deserts of Oman is now a place where this beautiful animal can live in peace. Unchanged for some 8,000 years, this is the virgin beech forest of Shirakami-sanchi. It is said that in ancient times, nearly the entire country of Japan was covered in forests like these. The Shirakami-sanchi area receives more than 4 meters of snowfall a year, and is known as one of the snowiest regions of the country. Gentle mountains with heights ranging from 800 to 1,000 meters form a chain on the border between Aomori and Akita prefectures, on the Japan Sea. In 1993, 170 square kilometers of virgin beech forest in this vast mountainous area was registered as a World Heritage Site.